comes from Ghent University. Let me introduce to you Dr. Nele Bracke. Dr. Nele Bracke je višja svetovalka za raziskovalno politiko na Oddelku za raziskovanje na Univerzi v Gentu. Poglavitna področja njenega zanimanja so vidiki človeških virov za raziskovalce, kultura raziskovanja in vrednotenje raziskovalnega dela. Now I invite Dr. Bracke to have her presentation.
I'm very happy to introduce you to the journey we are still undertaking at Ghent University. So this is a case study. Some things might be applicable in some Slovenian universities, but not everything, I think, can just be moved to another setting because, of course, we operate in our own very specific Flemish context. I think that already 10 years ago, we at Ghent University, we started to understand that the system that Professor Curry described during his talk, the system where we heavily depend on quantitative, bibliometric, scientific and output-driven indicators, that this system was creating quite some problems internally in the university. It was creating quite some tensions and it was raising criticism from scientists. For instance, we found it very hard to capture interdisciplinary research. When we started hearing and talking about open science within our university, we did not know how to match this with our existing evaluation mechanisms. And around 2012, we started looking around and we noticed that we were not the only ones facing this kind of challenges and issues. For instance, in 2013, the DORA declaration was launched. A couple of years later, the Leiden manifesto. So we, looking for alternatives for our evaluation systems, we soon understood that there were quite some interesting international examples that could inspire us. And so the internal debate at Ghent University started in 2013, which is of course not a coincidence, because that's when the San Francisco Declaration was launched. And we started talking about reforming our internal assessment systems. It took us until 2016 to launch our own framework, our own principles for the evaluation of research. At that moment, we did not sign DORA. We talked about it, but we did not do it. And when you read the 8 principles, they are quite in line with, for instance, DORA, also with the Leiden Manifesto. You will recognize there some elements from the metric tide, also some things that in iNorms people have been working around, and the scope initiative. So for instance, I make sure that your evaluation criteria are known and transparent. Think about differences between disciplines. Take into account what kind of research you want to value and what the impact of the research is intended to be. Is it academic, economic, societal? Think about the procedure and the administrative burden that will come with an evaluation procedure. Please do not forget the complexity of research. Build up your internal capacity or our internal capacity, because we were at that moment talking to ourselves, and then practice what we preach. So in 2016, the Ghent University principles for the evaluation of research, we did not say, let's not use indicators anymore, but we soon understood that people, evaluators, needed some guidance when they use indicators. So in 2017, we launched guidelines for the responsible use of indicators within our own university. For instance, make sure that the indicator measures what you want to capture, use a combination of indicators, think about undesirable effects of indicators, also think about the difference of assessment at the individual level and then more aggregate levels. Take into consideration peer review, but do not be blind. for the pitfalls of peer review. And we also, and this is, well, the guidelines are publicly available, but for internal use, every now and then we have a scientometric, a very small scientometric team at the university, and on a regular basis, people screen indicators that are available and try to give some very practical information about specific indicators. So that are two conceptual frameworks that we have in the university, but then of course the challenge was to translate our principles into some practice. And that also took us quite some time, because after designing and launching the principles, after thinking about the use of indicators, we needed to think, well, if we want to implement this and we take it seriously, what is important for Ghent University? What do we want to evaluate? And also connecting to the question that was asked to Professor van Schomburg earlier on, what is the context that we're operating in, and what kind of new problems could we create for our own academics who, for instance, want to move to another university? Yes, if we change our system, what will then happen with the CV of our academics? And what will then happen if they want to compete with people outside of our institution? So that took us quite some time to think it through. We also understood that, well, if we want to change the system and if we want to make use of other types of evaluation, other types of indicators, we need to make sure that it is feasible. We only have a limited number of evaluators. Changing the system should not mean that all of a sudden they have to work day and night to be able to manage all the evaluations. That the administrative system also has to be able to follow. And one example of a practical implementation was launched in 2018 and is at this moment being implemented in the university, and it has to do with the evaluation and promotion model for professors, because I do agree that we're all operating in the same international context. So the wisest thing and the most reasonable thing is to move together. But in the end, evaluating the people who are on a university's payroll is the responsibility of the university. And well, one single university cannot change that system for the rest. So we decided that we had to change, and we studied quite a range of different models and of alternatives. And why did we have to change? Because at that moment in 2016-17, our very output-driven system had reached its limits. It was creating a fierce internal competition. It increased the work pressure on academics. People were increasingly unhappy and dissatisfied with the system. And with people, I do not only mean the academics who had to be evaluated, but also the people who were organizing the system, because we had evaluations every 2 to 4 years. So we were constantly in this evaluation pressure also on the administrative side. And so in 2016-17, we had quite many thinking experiments about how an evaluation system could look like. And then finally in 2018, we decided to go for a radical change. And so the new model that people or professors are in at this moment for evaluation and promotion, not yet for recruitment, that will be a next step to tackle, but people who are working, who are on the payroll at professorial level, their career progression and their evaluation model is based on trust and academic freedom. We assume that academics, they want to do good research and they want to be visible as academics and as researchers with high quality research in the public or in the academic domain. So we think that ambition and talent is a natural driver for career progression. We opt for a merit and evidence-based qualitative approach. So we do not ask specifically at career progression level, we do not ask for quantitative indicators. We do not forbid people to give us the quantitative indicators, but what we're mainly interested in is a qualitative approach that focuses on achievements. So we ask people, what is your ambition? How do you fit in to your research group? What do you want to contribute to science in general, to public understanding of science? What do you want to contribute also to the university and to the research group? And on a regular basis, we invite people to reflect on their achievements and what are they proud of, in what direction do they want to grow or evolve. I think one big advantage of this system is that it allows us to capture and to evaluate many different elements and many different kinds of people within one system. And so the system is designed not to discriminate against a specific profile of researchers. We focus on 4 big domains: research, of course, teaching, of course, leadership and people management, who have become increasingly important, and institutional and societal engagement, also and because we have a very specific policy with regard to societal impact. We also foster and stimulate collaboration and performance as part of a team. And so we ask our professors, what is your specific spot within the research team? How do you see the research group evolving, and what role do you want to play at that level? For the academics, when you look at from their perspective, we try to focus on personal growth and career guidance. That's why all our professors now have an HR committee, and an HR committee that consists in part, some members are peers or researchers from the same group, department, faculty, but we also always have an HR expert, an HR advisor in the committee. So people, when they talk about career progression and when they're evaluating or when they're being evaluated, there is always a dialogue about achievements, about future developments, not only with regard to research, teaching, leadership, and engagement, but also from a personal perspective, where do you as a professor want to go? And the new system, we come from a system with evaluations every 2 to 4 years, and we've changed that into an evaluation every 5 years with an interim, a midterm dialogue, conversation in the HR committee. So the evaluation rhythm has slowed down, which leads to administrative simplification for all parties involved. The aim here is to stimulate more differentiated and complementary careers. And because when you only focus on research, well, what you get is research groups with very good researchers, but maybe not enough talented people for the teaching activities, maybe leadership and taking up leadership roles in a department are not valued. So why would we have people who are good at that in that kind of a system? So we try to evaluate and to stimulate complementary careers. We also try to give the message that, well, everything that we value is important. So there should be time for people to do research, to invest in teaching, to take up other academic activities. And we try to lower the competition, because a key element is that people, when they want to get promoted, are not competing against other colleagues in the department, in the faculty, in the university. But the main idea is that everybody who performs well should progress in his or her career. I've also included a web link where you can read more about this. Is this the end? No, of course not. It's not. We are continuously moving. And so last month, on the 9th of October, the Board of Government approved of a new document in which we set out as an institution some future steps. First thing is we signed DORA. We did not sign in 2013. We did not even ask the question, should we sign, for a couple of years, but now we've decided to sign and we did so. And well, when I started working on this topic a bit more than a year ago, I was quite unhappy that we hadn't signed yet, and because I did not understand why we didn't sign. You sign and then you start a process, I thought. Well, last month I was quite happy that we hadn't signed before, because DORA has changed quite a lot since 2013. I think in the first years it was a declaration, but when you sign now at this moment, what Professor Curry also described, you kind of join a community and you find a lot of inspiration on the DORA website. You can engage in a dialogue with other signatories, which I think is a very important added value for us at the moment. We're committed to further implement our own 2016 principles and to also implement DORA. And this implementation will be an ongoing process because there is nothing wrong with the principles that we agreed upon as a university in 2016, but the context has changed. Open science is a much wider concept at this moment than it was a couple of years ago. So we constantly need to pick up new ideas in the wider research context and to benchmark it, to double check it against our own principles. So even though the principles are valid, the implementation of the principles is ongoing work. We also decided, and the Board of Governors also explicitly stated, that in order to keep up with this work, we will need to invest in internal expertise. Yes, we started with looking at external international examples, but we need to have internal expertise and capacity. So we also, and this goes at the policy level, but why not involve the researchers? So a further step will be to communicate and to try to find ambassadors within our own institution. Because what we've noticed is that, well, of course we have early adopters. So we have researchers who are taking time to read articles, who are participating sometimes in experimental calls for funding on an international level, and who can give us a lot of feedback. One of the examples I'm thinking about is part of the open science thing, open peer review. We can think a lot at the conceptual policy level, but for sure some of our researchers have come across examples. And well, 6, that's why I'm here today, we deliberately took the decision at the university management and Board of Government level that we want to be active and we want to participate in an external debate. Coming back to the question I started off earlier, it is risky to be the first to move, and we would like everybody to progress in the same direction, but that I think will only be possible if we talk to one another and if we share ideas. And so those 6 steps have been agreed upon. A 7th step is not clear yet, but I already see it coming when I talk to people outside and inside Ghent University. Oh, no, it's over here. And so the end goal, where are we going? Of course, when it comes to research assessment, the quality of research is very important. That's what we want to foster, not just high quality results, but also high quality research processes, so good research practices. We want to value a diversity in outputs and in activities, value what is important for Ghent University, but for society and for the international community as well. to accommodate for diverse profiles of researchers, and of course, as a logical consequence, to attract and to retain top talents who fit into the research community that we want to be. And for those people, create healthy and attractive working conditions. We want a system to be oriented to the future. I do not think that we should have the same kind of debate about a dysfunctional system 10 years from now. And what I mean is that I hope that the system globally and the system that we create to award and to evaluate research and researchers is future-proof. That at this moment, for instance, next year, we do not agree upon a set of indicators, and in 5 years' time we think, oh my God, what have we done? Let's start the debate all over again. And we know that science will change and that we have flexible systems who can adapt to future evolutions. And so a ninth thing, what I already see coming, I started from the perspective evaluation, so personally, from the perspective evaluation of research. I had a colleague in the HR department who was looking at evaluation of researchers. When we launched our text, when we sent the text to the Board of Governors in October, people from the education department said, well, wait a minute, we're going to move towards evaluation of academics, because a lot is also going on within the domain of teaching and how they evaluate high quality teaching. And so somehow we will have to find a way, I think, to deal with this broader context as well. So I'm going to end here, and I'm looking forward to some further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bracke, for sharing the experience of good practice with us. Your university obviously is among the pioneers in changing research work assessment. Hopefully, other institutions will follow your example. I'm interested, is research assessment for funding allocation at Belgian funders also so visionary? Or do Belgian funders use very much different principles for research assessment?
Well, Flanders has a very specific system. So on the one hand, all the universities are funding agencies in themselves. So we get a block grant from the Flemish government, and then we have our own project goals. So there, the university can weigh on the criteria, but you're right. There is also a big funding stream coming from a Flemish funding agency. They're thinking about it. I know that they have a lot of internal debates about how they assess and evaluate research proposals, how they evaluate the researchers who ask for funding. And I know that they're active on the international scene as well, so that they look at what other funding agencies are doing. So yes, they will change their mechanisms, but they haven't done it yet. Yeah.
You mentioned it in your presentation, but still perhaps you can say a few words more. What is the experience of Ghent University researchers? Does the changed research assessment in any way influences their international collaboration?
Well, I think it's a bit early to say that because we only started in 2019 with really implementing the system. So we do not yet know how it will impact collaboration, because on the one hand, we say, well, we foster and we want to stimulate collaboration. So maybe people are going to look for more collaboration, but on the other hand, maybe the outside world will say, well, why should we collaborate with you? Because you're not heavily focused on indicators and on nature papers and on, so we do not know yet. We have some small indications that before the university changed the system, we also have some evaluation mechanisms more at faculty level, and we see there that faculties who over the years grew more relaxed and did not stress indicators that much anymore. That did not mean that the publication rhythm of their academics or the kind of journals they were publishing in all of a sudden changed. So, well, we assume that academics will think carefully, and if they have a profile and an ambition to publish in Nature, that they will do so, yes. Because we do not tell them, you cannot do that. We tell them, well, if it's relevant for you, yes. But if you think you should weigh on policy making, then probably Nature is not the right channel to reach our local ministers. So, yeah.
Thank you. Now we have two interesting questions in chat. The first one is, how this pandemic affects research evaluation? Different circumstances of your staff at Ghent University, care of children, etc., while some have more time for research than pre-pandemic, how to include this into the system of evaluation?
Yes, thank you. That's a very interesting and relevant question. Well, I think with regard of the career progression and the evaluation of professors, I do not think that there is a huge problem, because the university, Ghent University, is very much aware of the impact of the pandemic on all our academics. And as we organize and own, so to say, the evaluation model, I don't think that there will be a huge impact, because the system is flexible enough to take that into account. Of course, where there is more concern is, for instance, evaluation from funding agencies, evaluation at PhD level, and what happens if a PhD candidate is unable to finish the project as it was foreseen, and how will this impact the evaluation. There we can set some standards. So we can say to juries, well, please take into consideration the context, but we invite external members into evaluation juries for PhDs. And of course, you cannot control people who come from a different context, who maybe have different experiences with regard to the impact of the pandemic. So that's indeed a huge challenge, but it's not a challenge for Ghent University. Yeah, it's a global challenge, I think. Yeah.
That's true, yes. And another question, was there any resistance to the new system evaluation, maybe from researchers who were very successful under the metrics system?
Yes, of course, there was resistance. Ghent University has a culture, that's why changing systems and approving new steps takes quite a while. We researchers, young researchers, senior researchers, they're always involved in the preparation of changes. So we captured a lot of resistance there. And so we already tried to meet certain questions and concerns. But of course, there is resistance, and there is, well, maybe not so much resistance, but questions are being raised from, on the one side, the researchers on temporary contracts, because they wonder what will happen with my career outside Ghent University if I have a typical Ghent University CV, so to say, and what will my chances be? But also, what if I want to stay in the Ghent University system, and I have been preparing for the old system. I've been a postdoc for a couple of years, and I have been investing in high quality nature type papers, in patents, in quantifiable things. And now you tell me, well, maybe not, you could have diversified. So that's one type of concern that we are dealing with. And the other thing is indeed people who were very successful under the old system. Well, that does not need to change. I mean, they can still be very successful, because we do not ask them, we do not ask all professors to give us indicators and to give us numbers and citation impact and whatever. but well, within the research block of the evaluation, we allow people to tell their narrative. And if their ambition is to really change science at the highest level in their domain, they can for sure continue to do so. And then the evaluation will be about their academic impact. So I don't think they need to be worried, but I understand their concern, because their concern also expresses an uncertainty. Yeah? Is the new system telling them that they were doing the wrong things in the past? No, it is not. But I can understand at a personal level that you kind of have this idea, what is the hidden message? Are you telling me that I should be a different kind of academic? No, we're not. But yeah.